Hello, this is a video about Cooledit. Cooledit is a very powerful text editor. It's designed to have the features that a racing car driver would expect. In other words, something that you'll use with maximum efficiency with the least amount of hassle, where everything can happen as fast as possible. To begin with, I'll show the basic editing actions of Cooledit. Shift down arrow highlights text. Shift down arrow, Control Insert, Shift Insert works just like Windows. If I copy a sequence of buffers, 1, 2, 3, you can see that all of them are listed in this history of cut buffers. So I can paste them in sequence like that. Undo works as you expect. You press Ctrl U and everything goes back in sequence key by key. If I want to execute a shell, I can do so by pressing the escape key. It will execute the shell and it will put the output directly into the buffer. If I want to execute a shell and pipe the current text input as text selection through a shell, I can do it like this. If I want to sort a bunch of text, I can use the sort command. And I can undo everything, of course. If I would like to select columns of text, I can use the Control B option. Now, this works as you would expect. I can move it over here using F6. Search and replace works as you expect using F4. You have the option of regular expressions. Let's show an example of this. I would like to swap the arguments here. So I can go F4, search, okay, that seems to work. And here I can go string CMP brackets %. So unlike said regular expressions, you do not use a backsplash 1, 2 to denote your expression matches. You rather use %s, and here you can reverse the order going 2, 1. This is going to reverse the order of the first and second arguments. There you can see it's reversed, and I can do this all the way, again, and so on. So a very nice feature is the scanf expression feature. If I search for this and I hit scanf, it will match without regard to white space. So there you can see it's matched all of that. That's quite useful. I want to find out the MD5 sum of this block of text. I can just go MD5 sum. Undo. And once again, I can see the history of everything. Every single input has history. So for example, these are all the search terms that I've used, all the replace terms. Now right here, the syntax highlighting is C program. If I press F9, I can see all my menus. I can go to options, syntax highlighting. There's syntax highlighting for about 100 different languages. Almost everything that you can imagine. The macro feature is very powerful. Let's say I want to append a prepend every line with / to make it into a comment. This is very easy to do. You press Ctrl R. You'll see the R lights up here indicating that you're macro mode and then it's busy recording. I hit the home key, / space, home key again, down arrow, press Ctrl R again to end my macro, and then I'm going to use the Alt quote for this macro. Alt quote is useful because it's not usually bound to anything. So I press Alt single quote. Now my macro is bound to Alt single quote. Whenever I press Alt single quote, it repeats the macro. So let's do something like I want to make printfs out of this block of code. This is a more complicated macro. Press Ctrl R, tab, printf, open quote, end, /n, close quote, close brace, semicolon, home, down arrow. Press Ctrl R again, then Alt single quote, now Alt single quote, and you can see this turns it into a block of text. Obviously over here doesn't do what you want because that's not what the macro did. So this is a very powerful macro feature. Now the macro feature does not work line for line. It works like some other editors. You can do a macro that does anything that you like. So it will repeat any key that you press, including page down and so on. The shell feature is very powerful. I'm just repeating this to emphasize it. Date, cal. So what you see here is it's tried to do the cal routine thinks that it's inside a terminal, but it isn't. And this is actually a bug in cal. If I explicitly want to run a shell feature inside a terminal, then I can hit this and it'll actually open up a pseudo TTY. But so you can see that the tooltips say that it opens up in a TTY. I don't think it does. The TTYs are dumb TTYs. It doesn't actually have color support or anything like that. Here they're currently running shells. So for instance, if I run a shell like sleep 100, there you'll see the shell running. If I double click on it, it kills it. Gone. So for example, I can do this while true, semicolon, day, 2, day, sleep 1, done. So this will just keep on inputting stuff wherever I go. So we want to kill this. So we hit enter as well, also kills it. And now I can undo everything. The Shift back tab key cycles between previous editors, and it works as Control tab does in Windows. So Shift back tab does not close this menu until you've lifted your key. So if I want to go back 2 files, I can go back 2 files and 1 file and back to the other file. Here I'll go back 4 files, 1 file, 2 files. So that works very nice. Let's Shift back tab. The window menus, you can start a whole new Cooledit with new main window, or a regular window for a blank window. The file browser opens up a browser which can browse all of your file system. It has some interesting features. I can actually drag and drop a file and it will open it. So drag and drop does work. Drag and drop is not very useful. I don't know why it was invented, but it does work, and it's compatible with the GTK and Qt KDE drag and drop. Cooledit has built-in support for every single font that the Note to Sans project of Google supports, and all the fonts or sufficient fonts are loaded in order to give access to every single Unicode code point that Google has a glyph for. So press Alt-I, you can enter a Unicode code point. Control Home takes you back to the beginning. Pages down by 256 glyphs or 100 hex glyphs. These Unicode code points represent the entire Unicode 15 character set, which has got tens of thousands of characters. I don't actually know how many exactly. They're all rendered using free type in anti-aliased form. And this rendering is actually on the fly right now. You can see how fast it is. If you press Home and End, it will go up and down by 496 characters. Page up and page down goes up by 256 characters. And then Shift Home and Shift End goes to the beginning and end. So a very interesting region of the Unicode character set is around here, which contains all your emoticons. So these all work and they're in color. So I can enter emoticons directly into my C text. Now it'll remember where you are in the set, and it'll remember this side as well. So if you want to have 2 parts of the Unicode set open at once, you can do that. And this all works. Now, the other nice thing about Cooledit is that it supports the null character. So if you want to enter a null, you can enter a null. And the Cooledit is completely agnostic to nulls. They're just like any other character. You can see the actual Unicode code point over here. It will actually show you the hex value, and this will show you the decimal value. So if I highlight this character, you can see that the size of the block is actually shown over here, which is 4 bytes. The size of this one is 1 byte because it's a null character. The size of this one is 3 bytes. Cooledit does not do character combining. It shows you the text exactly as it is. It does not interpret the characters in any single way. If it cannot show a character, like this is a carriage return character, it will just show you it as some kind of hex string. So for example, if I do this, and I go to the end, it will enter that. And this is going to be also 4 bytes again. And it will show you there's no glyph that corresponds to this. It will just show you the full value. Cooledit is agnostic to nulls in every single one of its widgets. So I can actually search for this and it will find it. Here you'll see it in the history. So if I go to Control-Alt-Insert, shows me my input history. Sorry, wait a minute. Alt-Insert shows me my history of all things that I've copied. I restarted Cooledit, so the other things in the history are gone. Alt-Insert shows me everything that I've copied. And you can see there it's displayed, including the null character. Cooledit is a feature for inputting Latin characters, a great many of them. If you go to README non-lexical key composer, you can see all the combinations of things it can input. So we do this by using Alt and backslash. So do Alt backslash, you can see here's all the possible ones. Like let's say I hit A, we'll show you the next one, and it seems that you've got a hat there, a caret character, then you'll see it will enter a hat. So let's go E, and then if I go backward, it's E with back. So all this works quite intuitively. So Control Q can insert a raw character. So if I hit Control Q and 1, 2, 3, it will input a decimal 1, 2, 3 character. Control to 255 will enter a 255. If you go to the options and you turn off UTF-8 interpretation, then when you hit Control Q 255, it will enter a raw 255 character. It will not enter the 255, which is a 2-character sequence. We can turn this off so you can see the difference. So this is a 1-character sequence. This is a 2-character sequence. This is invalid Unicode, and therefore it is in as an invalid character with a green background. This is a valid Unicode character, but it's 255 is a 2-character code point. This way you can use it to input raw characters. Now, if you don't want to enter decimal and you want to enter hex, you can enter Control Q FFH, and that enters it enters the hex character. So for example, I can do Control Q 23H, which enters a hash, because hash is 23 hex. If I want to enter a full Unicode code point, I can enter, so for example, if I want to enter this, I can go Control Q U 10 FF FFF, and it will enter the full Unicode code point. Let's try another one. It will take 6 characters in total. So I can Control Q U 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 enters character code point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hex. And if you look, this is a 4 character length encoding in UTF. There is a bookmarking feature on Control-Alt-Insert. So don't get confused with
Alt Insert, which gives you the history, which I got confused with before, of all the things you've copied and pasted. Control Alt Insert toggles the bookmark. So if I enter 2 bookmarks here, you can see I can use the Control Alt up arrow to go between bookmarks. So let's enter a few bookmarks right at the top of the file, right at the end of the file. Control Alt up arrow, up arrow, up arrow, up arrow. Control Alt down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow. So you can see all your bookmarks are represented in the scroll bar. So I can scroll to them if I want to see them. Okay. By the way, there is a smooth scrolling option, depending on how fast your X-Windows system is, which will scroll smoothly. Alt up arrow scrolls the screen. You can see this is a smooth scrolling option. Control Home goes to the top left-hand corner. Control End goes to the bottom left-hand. Control Page Up goes to the beginning of the screen. Control Page Down goes to the end of the screen. I can go E, F to flush all the bookmarks. There. Note that as far as the macros are concerned, sometimes you want to delete a macro if you bind it to a key that you shouldn't. And that can mess you around quite a lot. So delete macro and hitting the key will delete the macro. The macro now does what I did before. So I mean the key now does what it did before and does not do the macro. If you want to bind keys to other things and change the binding definitions, here are all your key bindings. Now I actually never used this, but it does actually work, and last time I checked. So you should be able to get any kind of behavior that you want. Now Cooledit has a Save Desktop features which saves the position that your cursor is in every file and the size of the window in every file that you have open. So if you do Save Desktop and you stop Cooledit and start it again, everything will be exactly as it was. So we can try this by pressing, we actually kill the editor completely and restart it. Everything was exactly where it was. It will also save all the histories of things that we've searched for, as you can see. The one thing it doesn't save, as I said, is it doesn't save the history of copy and pastes. But every single other kind of input, it actually does save the history of it. So you've always got that if you need to go back to it. Now, the file browser, if I open up a new file, can actually access remote machines using the Remote FS tool. Now this works on any machine where you've got Remote FS running, and you can check the Remote FS man page to figure out how to do this. So, for instance, if I go CH, I actually don't have this installed. I didn't install the package as development. Here's the Remote FS tool, and this will show you how it is to run Remote FS on any machine on the internet. Set up a cipher key if you want, and you'll be able to access that machine as though it were local. Now the reason why this is powerful is because the Remote FS tool
works across the internet. So if the connection is lost, it does not give you latency or hang-ups. It's got a mechanism that automatically disconnects after 30 seconds and it starts up seamlessly and instantaneously. So this is much more powerful than an NFS mount or some other kind of mount which has the habit of hanging up if the network changes or if you move your laptop or something like this. This is completely transparent to network interruptions. So let's try and see this work. So here we've got a remote machine, which is a Windows machine. And the remotefs.exe is the Windows version of this, and it actually runs inside a DOS prompt on your Windows machine. So here you see it's running and allowing me to actually browse Windows. It will show me the Windows file system as it natively is. I just want to find some actual files here. So here's Xming on the Windows system. So you can open up any of these files on the remote machine. Here I'm going to open up a Windows executable, and you can see that it is a binary executable, and Windows Cooledit, it shows the binary files exactly as is. So that's the other thing about Cooledit. You can save and load files in binary and it will work perfectly and it will not change a single byte that you haven't explicitly changed. This is in contrast to other editors which in the process of loading and saving will do translation of some of the characters. Cooledit does not translate anything if you do not press a key. So for example, if I do a delete, an undo, and a save, the file will be exactly as it was and you can save it and not have any corruption of your file. So I hit F10 to close this. Now, Cooledit will open up a terminal if you press Shift F1. So here's a terminal which is a Unicode compatible terminal. So it works as you would expect any terminal to work. It has proper color support. And it has Unicode support as well. So there you can see a Chinese character. Now, if you've got a remote machine, so here is an example of me running on a remote machine. So what I've done is here is I've opened this file and I've entered the IP address of a remote machine where remotefs is running. It's opened this file on the remote machine. And you can see here is a remote machine where this file is located. So if you've got this blue IP address, it means it's a remote machine, not a local machine. Now if I press F11 now, or Shift F1, it's actually going to open where am I? Ian 1. It's actually opened this terminal on the remote machine. So this machine is through its own cryptographic protocol. This is not SSH. It's connecting to this remote machine and opening up a session there. So the session will be opened on the same machine as this blue IP address where you're remotely working. So this is very powerful because if I'm working in a file, in a particular location, every file that I open from now on, it will actually copy, Cooledit will actually copy the IP address from here to here and open up the file, open up the remote machine, the same remote machine where I'm currently working. So, and then when I press press Shift 11 and open up a terminal, it will open up the terminal on that same machine. So everything happens as though you're on that machine. You can be in a remote location, for example, another office, opening up files and using it, and you will completely forget about the fact that you're on a remote machine. When I save, it saves to the remote machine. When I open a file, it opens and rebrowses the directory of the remote machine. And when I press Shift 11 to open a terminal, it's a terminal on the remote machine. So there's no concept of being on the local machine anymore. It's completely remote. And it's as fast as it can possibly be because all the operations are hand-coded in low-level protocols which are unique to Cooledit. So it does not use SSH or HTTP GET requests or some other kind of encapsulation. It uses its native protocol. So this is very interesting because if I'm opening a Windows machine, say, so here's for example a file on the Windows machine, and I press Shift F1, I'm now on the Windows machine. I'm on the machine just the way the file is on the Windows machine. So this Windows machine is the same as this machine I'm on here. And there you can see that IP address is the same as that IP address there. So this is a very powerful feature for using Cooledit to edit files on Windows machines and actually use Windows machines. So this shell terminal is the BusyBox terminal, and if you do help, you can see all the kinds of commands that you have, which is most of the common commands that you'd need for Unix. This is 64-bit only, by the way, and it only works on Windows 10 and later. And you have to have an update past 2018. So now I'll show you some of the debug features of this. There's a full built-in graphical debugger here with all the things that you expect. In order to start off, you'll have to compile a program with debug support. This means using the -0 option and the -G option. So here's our program compiled. This is the program. The first thing I'm going to want to do is if I go into debug and I go set info, I've got to set first of all the executable, so I can browse to select my executable. And there it's set, and I can put some options in here. And I can set it to stop at the main function, so it will stop when it enters main. So now I go to start this, I hit Alt F5. So I'm hitting Alt F5 and it's running the debugger now. And the green bar is where the current execution point is. Now, the problem with this debugger is that many of the window managers actually trap the Alt F5 key. So you have to redefine your keys in your window manager so that all these keys work. Otherwise, it can be very difficult to use. So if you look here, it's Alt F5, Alt F2, Alt F9, Alt F8, Alt F4, Alt F3, and Alt F1. These are all the things that you need to unbind from your window manager. So now I'm going to hit Alt F9 to step through, and you'll see this is stepping through. It gets the exit key, and it says process has exited. let's do set info again. So to kill the debugger, I'll DK, we'll kill it. Hit Alt F5 again. Let's try this way. You get the idea. Alt DK. So I will just make a function here and watch a step feature. So I can put a breakpoint here. I can compile this again. I have the habit of always going Alt-D-K to kill the debugger, because then it doesn't know about the previous compilation. It forgets the previous compilation. I don't want to stop at main anymore. I'll press Alt F5. It's going to stop there. Then I hit Alt F8 to step into the function. And now it comes back to where it was. If I want to stop at a particular point, I can hit Alt F3, which will actually run until this point. Oh, I happen to exit here. Okay, let's try this again. So Alt D and clear all breakpoints is also quite a useful feature. So I pressed Alt F3 and it came up to this point, this exit point here. And then once again it says exit normally. Alt DK kills the debugger. So this is a very powerful, we can just try see this work in other ways. Okay, compile this again. Put a breakpoint here. I'll first clear all the breakpoints, then press Alt F5. It'll stop here. Now watch this. If I press Alt F1, I can print the value of this variable, which is 0. Pretty much anything in here I can print out. That's in scope. It works. It's just capturing the output of the GDPP command for printing stuff. But if I hit Alt-D-V, which is display variable, then I can display the variable permanently in this window. So now what I can do is I need to put this window on top here. Okay, and I can put as many variables as I like in here. And as I'm stepping, it's showing me the variable changing. Now, when it says X, it means that the variable has changed. You can see the variable change. And then exit the loop. If I hit delete on this, it will delete this from the list. This is very powerful for watching variables as you're actually debugging. So let's try this again, dvi. Now, if you read the help text here, so use deleted inference list, use insert to mark the variable as a watch point. This will cause the debugger to break if the variable changes. So let's try something here. Let's try something. If I equals 5, k equals 2. So there's a no symbol k because I've got to restart this. I'm going to kill the debugger. I'm going to recompile. I'm going to run it again. And then I'm going to hit a watch point on that. You'll see it goes to black when there's a watch point. And then I hit Alt F4. And it says variable k changes from 1 to 2. Okay? And you can see that R was 5 when this happened. So these watch points are very powerful and they work using the GDB internal watch point mechanism, but they're very powerful because of the ease of use with just simple keys. So now I can remove the watch point with insert again. I can delete these two. And that's the debugger. Now at any time I can list the backtrace of the debugger to the current point. So I press Alt D and then Alt to list the backtrace. And here you can see the full backtrace listing. Now the nice thing about this is if I highlight a particular row and I hit enter on that, it will take me directly to the file. There. Now the other feature about this is that you can attach and detach from processes. So you can enter the process ID and attach to a running process and then debug it and then detach it afterwards. So Cooledit has a scripting feature to actually make shell scripts out of things and have them execute. So here's an example of one. So this can do almost anything that you want to do with a script, which is very useful for creating a kind of macro environment. This one is the indent script, which uses a GNU indent. So let's say I want to format this. I can highlight it and hit Shift F9 and it will format this function. Let's show you what it looks like when it's not formatted. Here's another Cooledit feature which is very powerful. If I hit Shift and highlight a block, and then I hit Shift F6, I can change the indentation of a block of text. So here I'm really messing up, and I hit Enter to get done. So let's try that again. I go Shift, highlight the block, Shift F6, left arrow to remove indent, right arrow to increase indent, and escape when I'm done. Now I hit Shift F9 will reformat this using the format script. So in a lot of editors there is a way of increasing the indent, and with Cooledit it's using the Shift F6 hotkey. So here highlight Shift F9 will reformat this. That I use quite a lot because I often mess with the formatting of things and then I want to fix it again. Okay, I'm not sure if I missed the recording of that because I had the video on pause. This is Control Shift down arrow highlights a paragraph. Shift F6 controls the indent. Right arrow moves the indent to the right. Left arrow moves the indent to the left. If you go too far, it eats up all the indent. Enter to done. Then Shift F9 invokes indent script. Paragraph formatting works like this. If I press Alt P, it will format a paragraph. If I go to Options, General, and change the word ramp line length to 72, and Alt-P again will format it to 72 columns. Cooledit has a print feature. If you hit print here, there's a bunch of different options. We'll actually create a PostScript file, which will either pipe through LPR or you can pipe to a file. The PostScript file has a particular style with headings and so on, and there's lots of different options for printing stuff. It does not do syntax highlighting though, but it does actually look quite professional. So Cooledit has the feature that actually spell checks inside of C comments. So if I've got C comments that are spelled incorrectly, it will highlight them it will underline them in red. If I want to check the spelling of something, I can go highlight it and press Ctrl P, and it will bring up the A spell tool, and I can correct the spelling like that. So something quite interesting, if you have a large file open, Control Alt tilde Control Alt Shift tilde makes the whole screen red, and this allows you to see how Cooledit's refresh buffer works. You can see it only refreshes exactly what it needs to refresh. This is very powerful because it makes Cooledit blindingly fast. You can see Cooledit renders a page in under 1/30th of a second, so that when your keyboard refresh rate is on maximum, it will refresh every single page on every single key in full. So the speed of this is really quite staggering. Now remember, right now I'm actually not even running on the local machine. I'm running across a LAN over an X session. So you can see how blindingly fast this is. This basically means that your editing is extremely smooth for your own personal user experience. Now, Cooledit supports input method key composing for international languages like Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. So if you go to the Cooledit man page, and you search for the help on this, you can actually see how you can set this all up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through this process and then show you the actual input method working. You also mustn't forget to set your compose key, and you can use this with a set xk bmmap command to set the compose key to here. You can set it to your right alt key, or there's various different options. If you search through these files, you'll actually find what kind of options there are. Without this, you won't actually be able to use the composing because there's no way to actually invoke the composing. So let's try this out. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try the Chinese composing. So there's this tool called SCM Setup, which has already been set up. We need to run it in the background. It seems to not work. Okay, it seems the problem is that this is already running. Let's just kill the existing one. I don't know how the proper way is of stopping this. So we start from the top. We go first, we export the X modifiers, environment variable, and we set our language to any UTF-8 language works fine, but it has to be UTF-8. If it's not UTF-8, it will not work. We run the setup, we click that, and then we run this one, but I think we need to run it in the background. Okay, and then we can go Cooledit. Okay, and you have to put control space to actually go into a different input method. And then what you'll see is this will come up, and now you can start entering characters. So if I go, I think it's control space, right control key, seems to work. Now there we go. So you got to hit control space to select the input method, and then you hit right control key and a letter, and it brings up your different Chinese characters. And then you can basically enter this. So what Cooledit does is it will always put the input in the top left hand corner 20 pixels off the top left corner. So it's 20 pixels down and 20 pixels across. And that's where it puts it. It does not work like other input methods, which try to find it where your cursor is. And that's just a limitation, but it's not really a serious problem. So there you go. So that's how your input method is working. So this is actually quite difficult to set up, because if you do one thing wrong, it doesn't work, and there's no way to work out why. But hopefully this tutorial will, you follow it exactly, you'll get exactly the same results. There's another input method, which is the IBus input method, which works similarly. Now notice, very important, is that im equals IBus must be in lowercase, but im equals SCM must be in uppercase over here. This lang is not important except for the UTF-8, so you can have anything over here that's supported, obviously, but the UTF-8 is the critical one. As far as I know, this only works on Linux. I haven't tried it. Usually it's on an Ubuntu system where all the stuff has already been installed. Now if you're inside the terminal, I think this should also work. And you can see it also works here. You've entered 2 Chinese characters. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully this shows you most of the features of Cooledit. I may have another video showing other stuff later, so stand by. Good night.